What do you think in terms of things like the banking crisis? Are we at the beginning of this? Is this something that is over? Have we stabilized?
That ship has sailed. We're done. We're going to implode. The years of low inflation are over. A lot of people are going to lose a lot of money this time, and we've all suffered, whether we realize it or not. If you look back at the days where the pound really dominated global trade, Britain was an empire. Think about how much influence Britain had all around the world. It's just another country now. So Britain is a shadow of what it used to be. It doesn't have anywhere near the economic or military power that it once had when it had that position. So to say that, oh, it was easy for Britain, I mean, imagine what happens when America is just another country. It's going to be a big difference. But I think that our economy structurally is more screwed up than the British economy was. We're extremely dependent on the dollar status.
Are we in a worse position because of the debt crisis? What makes it worse now?
And the structure of our economy. We're so dependent. This service sector economy that can't exist unless it's supplied by the rest of the world. And when the pound was the dominant currency, it was backed by gold. I mean, it was a real money. They couldn't just print it like we've been doing. The dollar's the reserve currency, even though it's backed by absolutely nothing.
Winston Churchill said the biggest mistake he ever made was reattaching their currency to gold. Because now seeing how much power it gives America to just print. And this is like the thesis of my argument. You can get away with this shit for so long that the people that pay the price didn't create the problem. And so just emotionally, nobody has to go through, oh my God, we really crippled ourselves and we made it impossible for ourselves to print our way out of this problem.
That's one of the reasons that politicians hate gold, is it forces them to be honest. That's the last thing that a politician wants to be. They don't get elected telling the truth. And if they've been in office for a long time, it's because they're very good liars, because that's how you get reelected. But the public wants gold because we want to keep the politicians honest.
I don't think the public understands gold.
They've been deliberately confused about it by a government that doesn't want the public to understand it, because the government wants to be in charge of the money so that they can manipulate and tax us and try to tinker with the economy in ways that might make their reelection easier. And so we're not on gold standard. Again, it's like kids at a high school prom. They don't want the chaperones because they want to do a lot of things that the chaperones won't approve of. But the parents want the chaperones because they don't want the kids doing that stuff. That's why they're there. So gold is like the chaperone to keep the politicians and the bankers honest, but that's not what they want. They want to be up to no good, and gold stands in their way. That's why if you look at Alan Greenspan's essay, Gold and Economic Freedom, and he wrote this years before he became Fed chairman, but he does a great job of explaining this concept. Gold and economic freedom go hand in hand. We want honest money. We want sound money. I mean, money is supposed to have real value. It's not supposed to just be conjured into existence out of thin air by a central bank. You get absolute power over the monetary system. This is what happens. But human nature is one thing that doesn't change. I mean, we're more sophisticated now. We have a lot more technology now, but that hasn't changed. We haven't learned from the mistakes of the past. We just keep on repeating them in an endless loop.
Knowing what's going on right now, knowing that people are getting this short-term lunch for free through the inflation of the money supply, that we've just been pumping money into it. What do you think in terms of things like the banking crisis? Are we at the beginning of this? Is this something that is over? Have we stabilized? Do we have a bigger problem coming? Like, what does the nature of the situation tell you about where that's going?
The way you make a lot of money as an investor is you figure out where everybody else is wrong, and then you take the opposite side of that trade. Because that's how you can make the most amount of money, because you've identified something in the market where there's a mispricing, because the market is wrong. There's an idea of the efficient market that everything is priced right because everybody has the information and that's all reflected in price. But if everybody is wrong, if everybody thinks something and you know that they're wrong, the price is going to be wrong. Either it's too high or too low. And the way people made money shorting subprime, and not that many people made money because most people took the other side of the trade. They were buying the mortgages. They couldn't figure out the problem. But you had all these people who believed that housing prices could only go up and that these bonds would never default, because who would ever default on a mortgage? Because the price would go up and the bank could just sell the property and get their money back. And people, oh, they're guaranteed or they're high rated. And everybody believed that S&P or Moody's or Fitch or whatever. And so you had this bubble in home mortgages and people didn't care. Hey, nothing down, negative AM, teaser loan. I mean, standards went out the window because people just thought that these loans would never go bad. And to me, this was sheer lunacy. I was like, this is an accident waiting to happen. And so it was like, by betting against that, and eventually all of a sudden in 2007, the bottom dropped out because people figured it out. It took a while, but when they did, the mortgage market collapsed. People lost a lot of money who owned mortgages. Banks failed. I mean, a lot of money would have been lost, but a few people who bet that this was going to happen made money. It made a lot of money because not that many other people made the same bet. If people ask me, okay, well, what do you see now that reminds you of the mortgage market back then? Where is everybody wrong? And how do I make money betting that they're wrong? They've been wrong for a long time. But I think that the big thing now is the market's belief that the Fed is going to be able to engineer this soft landing that the Fed could take the inflation rate back down to 2%, and it's going to stay there indefinitely. Just like we had, 10 years or whatever years of 2% inflation as measured by the CPI, that the Fed is going to be able to bring inflation back down to that level so that it can reduce interest rates, which are now at a 16-year high. And they're still not that high. They're going a lot higher. But that these high rates are just temporary because that it's enough to put the inflation genie back in the bottle. And so the Fed's going to be able to cut rates back down and everything is going to be fine because inflation is going to be vanquished and we're going to go back to these low interest rates that everybody needs. The reason everybody needs low interest rates is because everybody has so much debt. Why does everybody have so much debt? Because interest rates were so low. Because the Federal Reserve kept interest rates so artificially low, it encouraged people to keep borrowing more and more money. And not just people, the government, federal government, state governments, corporations, everybody is loaded up with debt because the government artificially suppressed interest rates. Had they not done that, had the government not done quantitative easing, not blown up its balance sheet, interest rates would have been much, much higher over the last 20 years than they were. And as a result of that, we'd have much less debt. People would not have borrowed so much money. They wouldn't have started up a bunch of harebrained companies that really have no chance of success. We wouldn't have these zombie companies. Individuals wouldn't have bought so much on credit. They would have actually saved because they could have got interest on their savings. So we'd have more savings. We'd have less debt. We'd have a much healthier economy. We'd have a more productive economy. But because of what the Fed did, the economy's all screwed up. Now, the market just thinks that we can go right back to where we were. They're wrong. That ship has sailed. We're done. The years of low inflation are over. They're not coming back. There is so much inflation in the pipeline. And the dollar is going to start to really fall the minute the Fed stops hiking or indicates that it's done. And that's going to really accelerate the increase in prices. And you have the world now de-dollarizing. We actually sped up the process with the sanctions against Russia, which was one of the dumbest things that Biden did, was punish Russia for doing exactly what we needed to do. Russia was holding a lot of its reserves in US dollars and US treasuries, which is exactly what we need the world to do so we can export our inflation. And we punished them for doing that. We said, you know what, we're going to take that away from you. And we're going to deny you access to the SWIFT system. And we basically told the whole world, de-dollarize or we got you by the balls. We could do the same thing to you. That was a wake-up call for the world. We need an alternative to the dollar. When they have an alternative, we're SOL. We're going to implode. The markets are basically assuming that interest rates go down, inflation goes down, and so stocks are overpriced, bonds are overpriced, gold is underpriced, the dollar is overpriced. You have all these prices that are wrong because investors are betting on an impossible outcome because they don't understand all the mistakes that the Fed made since the 2008 financial crisis. In fact, they didn't understand the mistakes that they made before the crisis. That's why they didn't realize it was coming. I understood those mistakes. That's why I warned about the crisis in advance. And I know everything they've done since that crisis was a mistake too and made the problem worse. And the stuff that we did with COVID exacerbated the problem. But I think the markets are going to correct this, just like they corrected the housing.
Found this video insightful? Hit subscribe, turn the bell on, smash that thumbs up, and dive into the links in the description below. Join our vibrant community to ensure you never miss a video. Your generous support fuels our passion. Thank you for watching. We love you.